Green Bay Packers have the 23rd overall selection in the 2025 NFL Draft. So what are they going to do with it? It's a strange year when it comes to the draft. There's no consensus on who's going to be picked after about pick 3. So we casted a bit of a wider net this go around in terms of the Packers could select, ranging from tailor-made fits to guys Green Bay would have to stretch their thresholds for, to maybe players that would be outright shocking if Green Bay selected them at pick 23. So off we go with the first one, a pretty obvious one. Derrick Harmon, would love to see him be the selection if he were available at 23. 6'4", 313, 55 pressures, 5 sacks, a 17.6% pass rush win rate in 2024. Extremely productive as a pass rusher, but I think he does plenty of damage as a run defender as well. Plays with pretty good pad level, especially with how tall he is, to take on double teams, to free up defenders at the second level to make plays, but obviously also be disruptive as a pass rusher. To be able to wear multiple hats and succeed in 2 positions on the Packers defensive line feels as tailor-made a fit as there is. So Harmon coming in would provide an instant impact, and I think give that defensive line a massive lift in terms of being able to produce under second-year defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley. Shamar Stewart, obviously another one that, has been tied to Green Bay for quite some time now, 6'5", 267. Obviously played probably closer to 280, has that 10 RAS, right? Just elite numbers across the board. And it begs the question of athleticism and upside versus production and why the draft is projection, right? Shamar Stewart fits into that bag of Rashawn Gary and Lucas Van Ness, of guys who, are more 2 to 3 year projects than instant impact players. And yes, tremendous explosion and power. When it comes to Stewart, he can play well against the run, but he's got to build more as a pass rusher. He's relying too much on explosion to power. Now, he is a little bit more flexible than given credit for at his size, so that might play into, what Green Bay could see in him in terms of upside, but he certainly won't be a starter right away, but you could give it time, and potentially he could hit what I think many believe to be a massive ceiling at the next level. In that same vein, Mykel Williams from Georgia. Now, I think a little bit higher of a floor right away because he's such a great run defender in terms of anchor, leverage, and pad level, using his length to extend and shed blocks quickly, right? I think he does a great job setting a strong edge as a run defender. The functional athleticism he shows, is an indication of the high upside he possesses. He can get to the long arm. He can flatten his angle to QB. He's rushed from the interior before. And obviously that 10-yard split is really, really encouraging for a player like Williams who, maybe is more on the Trayvon Walker track rather than the Van Ness and Gary one. So Mykel Williams would certainly be an interesting selection if he were available and Green Bay took him at 23. But again, Williams and Stewart kind of in that same mold. But Green Bay in the 4-3, they're going to want bigger defensive ends. And then they even did when they were, in the 3-4 at outside linebacker. So I don't imagine that changing much. Josh Simmons, the offensive tackle from Ohio State, 6'4", 317. Experience at left tackle and right tackle, just 1 sack and 15 pressures allowed in 2 seasons with Ohio State. Obviously, the patellar tendon injury is the biggest concern with Simmons, but there's been a lot of positive reports recently about his recovery, and I think that will encourage plenty of NFL teams. Yes, when it comes to Green Bay, it feels like things are pretty set, but Rasheed Walker and Zach Tom are both due extensions, are both going to be signing. Where does Jordan Morgan end up playing? Does he end up playing at all? I think are all very valid questions to ask. And Josh Simmons could be a guy who kind of maybe finds a home at a guard spot in 2025 and then takes over at left tackle in 2026. He's an excellent mover, second level blocks, reach blocks. He's so good there, but he can also be effective, in gap schemes, as kind of a guy who can drive defenders out of their gap and create lanes for his running back. And he works low to high. He's got good knee bend. He's got a strong strike at the point of attack. Really, with him, it's all about, more consistent hand usage and strikes and pass protection than anything. And if you get that cleaned up, he could be tackle one very, very easily in this class, health willing. So Simmons, I think, would be a very good selection if you want to keep that offensive line as a strength for a long, long time. Moving to receiver, Tevin McMillan, 6'4", 219, a 4'5", 340, 2 1,300-yard seasons at Arizona, 8 touchdowns plus in every season at Arizona, 2.37 career yards per route run. Obviously, Goody was at that sort of private workout pro day for McMillan. Again, he's really fluid for his size. He's got great catch point instincts. It's not just, winning contested catches. It's more so making slight adjustments, giving himself an advantageous position at the catch point, and being able to stay composed and show off good in-air athleticism, right? Like, all of that matters at the catch point. But he's got the vision, awareness, suddenness, and toughness after the catch as well. And I think he does a pretty nice job, a lot of times with in and out breaking routes in terms of that fluidity. He just has to improve against press and improve his body language in the stem. He often tips his hand at whether or not he's running go routes versus, in or out breakers. He has that potential to be an X receiver, but there are steps he must take to get there. Matthew Golden, maybe more of an instant impact player. 5'11", 191 would be a little bit small for what Green Bay has done at receiver. He's obviously quite close to what Chris Olave was, and I think there was definite interest there from Green Bay. Has the 4.29 40, and that is something where I think is more of an ancillary piece to the evaluation rather than the primary one. Great route runner, in and out breaking routes, wins with tempo, attacks leverage, all that is so good. His release package is continuing to get better and better. He did a great job in both Georgia games with it, makes excellent adjustments to the football, obeys it well in terms of working back to it, elevating, contouring the body, whatever he needs to do. The lack of production is going to be the question, right? He got on a heater with Texas down the stretch, didn't crack 1,000 yards, didn't really do much at Houston. So that lack of production is certainly a question mark there. And obviously the size is something we believe maybe not an issue, but it's still maybe more of an outside shot than we think. Maxwell Harrison, a late addition to the list, 5'11", 183, a 9.63 RAS. And you go, well, why is a 183-pound corner on this list? Well, reportedly he's up to 193, and I think that would get his RAS up to like 9.9. And the explosion and the speed are obviously there. The 4.28 40 carries a ton of weight. The production's pretty good. His passer rating allowed the last 2 seasons is pretty impressive in the SEC. He's patient. He obviously knows, he has the speed in his bag to recover if need be, so he can be patient at the line of scrimmage, mirroring and matching, initiating some contact. He had some great reps down in Mobile. He's got the closing burst and recovery speed. He flashes all the catch point timing and ball skills that you could want. Real question is about the off-field allegation that might be a thing or not. We don't have a lot of info on it. Probably NFL teams have more info than we do, so just something to monitor there. Trey Amos, corner from Mississippi, 6'0" 3/4, 195, and 8.37 RAS. The speed and the explosion's pretty good. I think the agility testing, right, he only did one of them, and it wasn't a great time, so there's maybe some questions there. But he had 3 interceptions, 13 passes defense, and just allowed a 54 passer rating and coverage in 2024. Really impressed with how fluid he is, transitioning from pedal and off coverage to working across the field outside the numbers. Great closing burst as well. Good catch point timing. He's obviously bigger and physical and has a little bit more length to him to be able to challenge the catch point more. I think he's got really good feel in zone coverage. He often peels off his own route because he's reading what the quarterback is doing to go make plays at the catch point. I think the biggest question for him is decelerating on the vertical plane with the comeback routes, the curl routes, but versatile deployment. I think he might be able to handle press coverage, off man, zone, match. Like he's going to be able to do a lot of things for you in terms of coverage. Walter Nolan, defensive tackle, Mississippi, another Mississippi defender on here, 6'3" 3/4, 296. Didn't do the testing, which was strange because he's such a phenomenal mover and his movement skills just look different than anybody else. 35 pressures and 32 run stops, not to mention 14 tackles for loss in 2024. The burst, the lateral agility, the explosiveness, all of that is just different from everybody else in the class, and I think it shows what his ceiling could potentially be. His explosion to power is incredible. When he plays with good pad level, he can be just a devastator in terms of taking on blocks against the run, kind of resetting the line of scrimmage in a positive way for the defense, and being able to turn the corner, cross the face of offensive linemen as a pass rusher. He's got active hands, but again, it's just about consistency and refining that technique where his ceiling could be a top 5 player in this class when all is said and done. Savone Revel, corner from East Carolina, 6'1" and 7/8, 194. When you look at the passer rating allowed, the passes defense, the interceptions, all of that looks really, really strong. And he didn't look out of place at all when he played against Michigan in 2023, which I think is a very ringing endorsement there. He's built for press coverage. He's physical at the line. He's a great route disruptor. He's got great closing bursts as well for his size. He's got pretty good transitional quicks out of his pedal. He's a great run defender and tackler. And one thing he does well that others can struggle with at times is turning and finding the ball at the catch point, not necessarily playing receiver, which is a fine thing to do. But Revel's confidence in where he is and turning to find the ball is really impressive to watch. He needs to improve his zone drop eye discipline. He needs to be more comfortable in more cover 2, cover 4. I think that is really the question for him. Is he going to be more just comfortable at the next level in just single high looks in cover 3, cover 1? Does that maybe limit, Green Bay's interest in him? Does that, kind of change how Green Bay thinks about him? Perhaps. But, I'm really, really impressed. If not for, of course, have to mention the knee injury. So we have to watch out for recovery there. Will Johnson, another one that's been dealing with injuries. But boy, when you watch him, the passer rating allowed the last 2 years, and he is truly an effortless mover in transition. Even when, receivers are throwing in deception or double moves and all that stuff in their stem, even if Will Johnson bites a little bit, just the fluidity, the footwork is almost different than everybody in this class other than probably Travis Hunter. And he has great instincts and read, react, and anticipatory skill set from off coverage where he's able to close and make plays on the football because he is great at diagnosing what's coming. Really, it's just going to be about the long speed, right? He's obviously a phenomenal zone corner as well, so maybe in man coverage, you worry about that a little bit. But man, in a predominantly, zone coverage league, Will Johnson's going to be so effective. And if he's available, Green Bay should consider him for sure. Kelvin Banks Jr., offensive tackle from Texas, 6'5", 315, 2,774 snaps at left tackle for Texas, just allowed 4 sacks and 34 pressures in his career. The foot speed, the initial strike and pass pro is really good. He obviously can be a part of zone and gap blocking as well in the run game where he has that power to unlock. He has, some good functional athleticism. His pad level is often very, very good. He's often the low man in a lot of his reps. It's really just about his base getting too wide. He can be clunky to recover, and he struggles to sustain some blocks a bit on the move. And sometimes the recovery skills just aren't very good. But again, maybe some tackle guard versatility there, and maybe something Green Bay would look for, again, as a guy who could play guard right away and then kick out to potentially play left tackle in 2026. Maybe another out there prediction here. Obviously, Quay Walker, some potential questions about his long-term future in Green Bay. Jiad Campbell, 6'2" and 7/8, 235. The RAS is off the charts. The speed, the explosiveness, it's all there. 20 pressures, 5 sacks, 12 tackles for loss. Just a 5.9% missed tackle rate from Campbell at Alabama this past year, which is really, truly insane when you think about it. Obviously, the insane speed, the range. He's obviously a great blitzer with that closing burst. He's got a good feel in coverage, whether it be understanding his assignment, when you got 3 receivers to one side, carrying, receivers or tight ends up the seam. He does a really nice job in those zone and match coverages to be in the right spot with his assignment. So his speed covers him at this point being a bit slow to react at times against the run, and that's really the question, right? And that's ultimately how, becoming a Mike linebacker or even becoming an effective Will linebacker at the next level, you have to be able to have that anticipatory read and react understanding of the game rather than just trying to, be there, a step behind. It's very difficult to do that. Campbell will have to learn that, but the athletic upside is obviously very, very real. Josh Connerly Jr., the last tackle on the list here, 6'4" and 5'8", 311. The speed is really, really impressive for him. He's got elite movement skills at the tackle position, 1,881 total snaps at left tackle for Oregon. Really, the hand placement is the biggest question for him. Often a lot of bear hugging, often a lot of missing strikes initially, where, again, the footwork has really helped him recover in that regard. But the movement skills, the ceiling is there at left tackle. Again, if Green Bay wants to, have a plan in place for 2026 and beyond that isn't on their roster, One more linebacker on the list. I'm sure people are thrilled about that. Carson Schwessinger from UCLA, 6'2.5", 242. RAS off the charts. He added weight, reportedly. You know, people thought he was playing around 225 at UCLA. Jumps up to 242 and just dominates the combine. These numbers would be insanely good for a corner, especially in the explosion drills and the jumps. Like, outstanding stuff. Got to the agilities late in the process, and those numbers look really, really good. How about 90 solo tackles in 2024? Not to mention 18 pressures, 4 sacks, 9 tackles for loss, and 2 picks. Another linebacker with a ton of speed, a ton of range, a ton of closing burst. Plays with a bit more processing skill and processing speed, I think, than his fellow linebacker in this draft from Alabama, where he's quick working downhill. And, you know, I think he can make plays running the alley to the outside, but he can also quickly, you know, get to his gap and kind of beat offensive linemen to their spot. So I've been really impressed with watching him, and I think his feel for coverage is really good. He's obviously, you know, able to make plays and carry, you know, guys up the seam as well. Kind of in those Tampa looks where he can just kind of run the seam. He's really effective there. So, you know, another guy with a ton of ceiling. He's just a 1-year full-time starter, but boy, you got to love what you see from Schwessinger on film. Jiad Thomas, corner from Florida State, really just his fluidity for his size is really impressive. He's great in press coverage, but I think he can be effective in zone coverage because of how good the transitions are, and he's a phenomenal tackler as well, and a disruptor in the route stem, of course. I think the long speed is really just the question, right? Are you comfortable with him out there with that 4.58 and maybe a guy who definitely runs a little bit slower on film? Otherwise, though, everything else pretty much checks boxes for him at the corner position. Kenneth Grant, would the Packers take a 1-tech in the first round? Seems unlikely, but we're going to include it because you never know. Maybe Green Bay with this 4-3 wants a player like this, and if they want him early, it's going to be Kenneth Grant, right? 6'3" and 5'8", 331. Maybe not the RAS we were expecting at 7.18, but the 10-yard split's good. The vert is good there in terms of the testing numbers, but 27 pressures, 22 run stops. He's really sudden for his size, working around blocks with the arm over, as well as holding the point of attack. He flashes as a pass rusher with those really, really impressive movement skills at his size. And again, if you improve the pad level and continue to build consistency as a pass rusher, he is going to be a very, very good pro. And again, could really help out your defense to free up the second level linebackers to you know, make some plays against the run and really force, you know, offenses into down and distances that you would like, especially on third, where you can unleash guys like Edgerrin Cooper and players like that. So Grant would be interesting for sure. Jaden Higgins, got to talk about him. Probably would be a little more surprising, but again, the athleticism is obviously off the charts at 6'4", 214. Very fluid and sudden mover. He's got kind of that ability to lean into contact and snap off the routes. The route tree is continuing to improve. Obviously, great adjustments to the football, catches everything thrown his way, but stem contact is really the question. Can he become a true X receiver, or is he going to be limited to be a big slot? Emeka Egbuka, obviously Green Bay met with him, 6'0" and 7'8", 202. The shuttle time, I think, is the most notable of his testing. 2 seasons with 1,000 yards at Ohio State, 2.61 career yards per route run. He's got all the fine details to play the position. Attacking leverage, finding space, his field IQ's off the charts, right? And he's got good vision and processing skills with the ball in his hands as kind of a gadget player as well. You know, reliable to catch point. It's really just the lack of explosiveness and maybe an inability to play anything but slot receiver that would, you know, deter him from becoming a Packer. And last on the list, Landon Jackson, edge rusher from Arkansas, 6'6", 264. He's kind of more of the diet version of the other two we mentioned at the top, and Stewart and Mykel Williams. Maybe a little bit stiffer of a mover than those other two, and needs to develop something other than the kind of that Euro step cross chop that he goes to a lot, because if that's not working, he struggles to get pressure. The production's not the worst, though, of these edge rushers we've talked about, but still, I think he has to just become much more consistent as a pass rusher. And there you have it. A lot of names that Green Bay could select in the first round of the draft. Let me know who you would pick. Let me know who you think the pick is going to be. Throw a like down there. Subscribe if you're new. Draft show Thursday and Friday. Details in the description for that. And I will catch you guys in the next video. Farewell.